I would just like to thank everyone for coming along today. I appreciate all of your participation and engagement with these meetings. And thank you to the people that have come back for a second time, and welcome to the new people. Before I get started, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we are all on today and their continuous connection to land and sea. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. In terms of the agenda today, which I have sent out to everyone before the meeting started, we'll start off with just about 5 minutes looking at the logistics of today, just how the meeting is going to operate, because we have changed from last time from a Zoom webinar to a Zoom meeting, so there are a few little differences. Then we'll go into a bit of talking about the outcomes from the last meeting, so I'll be doing that talk, followed by a bit of a Q&A section on that in case anyone wants to have questions or raise ideas or provide feedback on the pathway forward that I'm proposing. Followed by that, Blacktown Council's WSUD Compliance Officer, Kate Murphy, and Acting Waterways Coordinator, Christy Good, will be doing a short presentation on their experience with WSUD compliance. And then there'll be a little Q&A section after that, and then looking to kind of wrap up after that. But if people want to stay on for a bit longer after that, I'm also happy to stay on and talk to people about other things as well. Logistics for today. This time, so we have swapped to a Zoom meeting rather than a Zoom webinar, which means that you are able to share your audio and video so people can see you and can hear you. However, I would just encourage you can keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking, just to make sure that there aren't weird background noises and everything when people are talking. And if you do want to say something, if you could raise your virtual hand to say something, then Brad or myself will unmute you and you can talk. And when you do speak, at least for the first time, you could say what organization you're from, just so that everyone kind of knows where you're from and what your context is. I would also just say to kind of be respectful of everyone's opinions, ideas, and time. We are trying to solve an issue that the industry has been facing for a while. So any opinion or idea is valid and could be helpful in solving and improving things. And in terms of time, being respectful of that, we'll be looking to stick to the agenda time so that people can leave on time, but also making sure that this is not a place where people are kind of selling their products or services or anything. This isn't what this time is about. Before we go any further, I would just like to put the disclaimer that I acknowledge that Ocean Protect do have a conflict of interest in relation to the topic of improving WSUD maintenance, noting we supply, install, and maintain WSUD assets. As an Ocean Protect employee, that does apply to me. I would also acknowledge that there are others that will attend these meetings with conflicts of interest in relation to solving WSUD compliance. And so that's why I suggested, if you are going to speak, if you could just say what organization you're from, so that people understand the context around your feedback and input. And if people want to talk to me after today, you can email me, you can call me, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, or you can find out more information and the recordings for these meetings at wsudcompliance.com.au. You can scan that QR code or just type in wsudcompliance.com.au to find out that. For the people that missed last meeting, just kind of providing a bit of clarity, the National WSUD Compliance Network is a group looking to meet regularly online to discuss improving WSUD compliance and working together to improve it, with the first project of that network being the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework. So this framework is going to look to be a package of resources for councils to implement and operate a WSUD maintenance compliance program. More information about both of those will be available at wsudcompliance.com.au, or will also be talked a bit about today. In terms of just giving you a bit of representation of who's registered for today, so you understand the type of organizations interested and involved with this. You have a bunch of councils, you've got catchment groups, you've got consultants, and a range of others, which is really good to see. So thank you all for registering and being interested and involved. So in terms of the outcome, 50 of them were from government, so it was heavily a government attendance, which is great to see, primarily councils. There were 46 organizations represented at that meeting. with 28 of them being from councils. So in terms of the group name, last meeting I started it off with the name National WSUD Compliance Committee, and there was a poll in that meeting where we looked at kind of different options for that name. The one that won was National WSUD Compliance Working Group. However, after a bit more thought and discussion with some people, the name that was decided was National WSUD Compliance Network. The idea behind that really being the fact that this is more about bringing people together to build a bit of a network around WSUD compliance rather than everyone kind of, I guess, working together as a group on compliance. And so that was kind of why I've gone with the name network over committee and working group. In terms of the meetings, it was voted about kind of do a meeting every 2 months, aiming for a 60 to 90-minute meeting, trying to keep it to a 60-minute meeting with an additional 20 to 30 minutes after that if people want to stay on and talk about some other projects or have a bit more of an open floor or talk about or answer any questions that weren't answered during the first 60 minutes. And looking to do kind of a Wednesday at 2 p.m. Sydney time, so 8 Australian Eastern AEDT time for this for now. In terms of feedback from attendees from the last meeting, there was a lot of positive feedback, which was great, from people saying things like that it looks promising, happy to know that they're not alone, and see it as a way to see things get standardized. So that is kind of what the framework's looking to do, but also this network can help standardize other things as well. People were interested in seeing focus groups for each state. That is a good idea and something we can work towards, but it's not, I don't think it should be a priority right now. Looking more nationally and then kind of breaking it down into state level with time. In terms of what people wanted to see at future talks, things about funding, regulations, case studies, experiences, legislation, other forms of compliance, stuff around enforcement, Blacktown's experience and more. And so today we've got Blacktown Council to come along to do a presentation on their experience with WSUD compliance, because that's what people wanted to hear, and I'm keen to kind of get their talk happening a bit later today. People were wanting to see people talk, and so that's why today we've swapped to a Zoom meeting rather than webinar, so that if people can see them, and that's what I'm hoping to do today, talk about that a bit, but also looking at what support looks like. So that's kind of, what today's talk.
Sorry, it's Brad here. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I've seen a couple of comments that Daniel's connection is coming in and out. So Daniel, if you can hear me, I've just texted you, but I think you might just want to check your internet connection. You might want a hotspot off your phone.
Yeah, I've just hotspot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're much better now. You're just cutting out a little bit before, but if you cut out again, I'll let you know.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've hotspotted this time, so hopefully that will be all good. But yeah, I guess in terms that there's a lot of feedback, and I'm looking to implement what was said. And today's talk is going to be looking a bit more at the goals and what support looks like. So in terms of being involved and support with the framework and the network, there are a few different ways people can do that. Firstly, being a participant, so just coming along to these meetings, being involved, engaging in whatever way suits you. So no commitment, no obligation, just coming along and sharing your thoughts, asking questions, give ideas, give feedback, all of that. Otherwise, you could also look to become a supporter, so providing in-principle support for the framework. At the moment, I've started working towards getting some in-principle support from some individuals as professionals, but also from organizations. But at the moment, we do have it from Optimal Stormwater, Murray Powell, and Ben Penaluric, and I do have a few others in the pipeline at the moment, but looking to get more people behind this to kind of get people's support to show that this framework is a good idea and is something that the industry needs. I will also be looking for pilot partners, so looking for organizations that want to pilot the implementation and or operation of the framework. So working with me or working with this group and kind of helping get that implemented and operating to really show where this works and where it doesn't work and how this framework can be improved. Then in terms of the project, being a project partner, so providing significant contributions to the development of the framework. So some sort of time, capacity, resourcing, funding, whatever that may be. Happy to have those conversations offline and see if there are ways to get you involved in developing the framework if you're interested. So in terms of the meetings, so everyone is welcome. Anyone in the industry and even people outside of the industry are welcome to come along to share their ideas, provide their feedback. And for the people unable to attend a meeting, they will be recorded and available on wsudcompliance.com.au. If you go there, you will be able to find the recordings for these meetings. And the meetings really is an opportunity for me to provide updates on the framework, which I'll do a bit later today, just providing an update on where things are at and how it's going, then getting feedback from the industry on the framework, because this is being developed to help councils across Australia. So it's important to get that feedback and opportunity for all of you to shape and develop this framework with me. But also talking about other WSUD compliance stuff as well. If there are certain topics and projects that people want to talk about, this is an opportunity for that too. In terms of the network, the idea is that it's looking to improve WSUD compliance by being responsible for the WSUD maintenance compliance framework. So as I made clear last time, this is a project for the network. It is not solely a Ocean Protect project. It is a network project. And also the network is looking to discuss relevant issues at meetings, so other things that are not just the framework, but other projects and issues the industry is facing. Now, a bit of a timeline kind of showing the pathway forward at the moment for this project. This may change with time depending on kind of how things go, but this is what I'm working towards. So over the coming kind of 4 months, I'm looking to develop as much of the material as I can, providing that in a draft form to the industry around February if people want to start looking at it or engaging with it. I will then look to review that draft material with a pilot partner to help make it as relevant as possible for them so that they can look to pilot it. I will be then looking to let councils to start use this from kind of July next year, where they can use the material and hopefully through these meetings get the feedback that will allow for the continual evolution of the framework. And also from that time, and maybe for about a 2 to 3 year period, looking to do a pilot of the framework with pilot partners, really test it and refine the framework to make sure that it's relevant and applicable for the industry. Just providing a little bit of context about what this framework is going to try to work towards, and I'd be interested to hear what people think about this, is creating a program which is slightly different to Blacktown's, nothing wrong with Blacktown's, but just slightly different to make it a bit easier to make it a bit of a baseline for a program for across Australia, where contractors would be doing the work throughout the year, keeping the evidence, photos, videos, reports, and all of that, then submitting that on an annual basis. So just once a year, submitting all of the reports and material and evidence to council, and that's submitted to council. It will be stored in the compliance management system, and then council will then randomly audit the properties and contractors just to kind of really help make this more effective and efficient with the limited resources that councils will have. And Kate and Christy from Blacktown will talk about this a bit more soon as well, based off their experience with their program. And in terms of an update for the framework, at the moment, since last meeting, I've been looking mainly at the instructions and the compliance management system mockup. So those both have been started, primarily looking at the mockup system. So hopefully that will be ready kind of January, February for people to look at. Then in terms of the instructions, there's implementation instructions and operation instructions, looking at helping people understand how to implement and operate a program. I've done quite a bit of the implementation stuff, but haven't done a lot of the operational stuff yet. Then legal material, we'll be looking to start this soon. We'll be engaging with a lawyer soon to kind of figure out the basics for this, such as the conditions of consent, and just doing a bit of a review of the situation, the legal situation for stormwater management. Then looking to start soon the educational and engagement materials, so some letters and fact sheets, and with time that will probably include some other things such as videos and other documents and other materials. And so this second meeting and the first meeting really looked at didn't really look at the material for the framework. It looked at more kind of outlining how this network's going to operate, how the framework is going to kind of operate. But from next meeting, I do hope that there will be more material for people to start looking at, reviewing, and providing feedback on. And hopefully from there, people can get into a bit more deeper detail about the material. And so just before we get into Q&A, I just wanted to run a quick poll to check what people thought about what I've said today. And then in the Q&A, we can kind of talk that through a bit. So the question is, so I'm just going to launch this poll. So hopefully that should come up. Basically, what I'm just kind of curious to see from the people today is, what do you think about this pathway forward for the group? Do you think it's good? Do you have neutral feelings about it? Do you think it's a bad idea? And so just providing your response, and then we can talk through it in Q&A a bit. I'll just give it another kind of 10-15 seconds to let people respond. So I'll end the poll there. I'll just share results that people can kind of see. But basically, yeah, most people are either happy with it, 12 out of 17, or 5 out of 17 have neutral feelings about it. So that's good to see. Now we'll get into Q&A. So I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can kind of see each other a bit better. But if people have anything they want to say, you're welcome to raise your hand and we can have a bit of a chat. And if no one has that, we might go through the chat and see if there's any questions in that.
Just one comment you'll see, never short of something to say, is Andrew Thomas. Greetings, Andrew. Andrew says, if people can't read it, sadly, due to the potentially high number of systems and limited resources, random audits is likely to be the most pragmatic approach. I can see a couple of individuals in the screen that are often never short of an opinion as well, something to say. And I'm looking down the barrel. Murray Powell is front and center in my screen. So
I bet you to it, Murray.
Oh, look out. Did you want to elaborate on your comments, Andrew, at all?
Yeah, look, I just think it's also a neat approach. I think when the whole concept, because it provides a nice balance between an oversight by a third party or government entity, but also encourages a market-based solution, a bit of competition, and it'll help grow the market, I guess, which is good for the industry. So from what I've seen so far, I think it's a good idea.
And Ben Peneleric has responded to your comment, Andrew. Ben says, for people who can't read it, coupled with a formal qualification that can be enshrined in consent conditions, requiring properties to engage qualified contractors to inspection and maintain systems. This way, council and potentially an accreditor can audit contractors to make sure things are going according to plan. This was the direction we wanted to go with Blacktown, but couldn't as the players weren't ready for it. But I think the industry should head in that direction now.
So I agree that we do need to work towards an accreditation, and I'm sure Murray can talk a bit about the training that Stormwater New South Wales provides with their guidelines. But yeah, I do think that is kind of the direction we need to move to ensure the quality of the work being conducted. Murray, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, certainly. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make it drink. So we can train people up in what should be done, whether it's actually done in the field by the guys on the end of the hose or the shovel or whatever they're maintaining things with, is yet to be seen. But certainly if we can get some standard information in regards to what works need to be done for each of the different WSUD solutions, and then a standard reporting format, that'll be a big step in the right direction. And then we can start picking up, errors and oversights and things that are done well and poorly. And it'll take time to evolve this whole thing over the next decade. But we've got to start somewhere. I think this is a good start. So let's see what Daniel comes up with over the next couple of months and how it progresses from there. But obviously the content from this, it's my intention that it will be included to some degree in the guidelines for the maintenance of stormwater treatment measures, and certainly referenced in there. And if there are standard reporting protocols, etc., then we'll include those in the guidelines as well. So yeah, more power to you. Keep it up, mate.
Thanks,
And just on a follow on from that, Andrew said, I agree with Murray. We need to start somewhere, and the system can be modified as we learn from doing. Ben, you've been patient with your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with both. Surprisingly, I agree with both Andrew and Murray, and commend Dan for doing something that nobody's really done before. So good on you, mate. And building on the really good work that you did at Blacktown, it's really, really cool that you're doing that. There's a lot of there are precedents for these things, accreditations and qualifications working in other places around the world. In Singapore, they've got qualifications for water sensitive urban design, including maintenance, as I believe I was told pretty recently. So I think there are probably precedents that we can draw on from elsewhere around the world. CPESC is a thing. We don't have a similar standard for the inspection and maintenance of WSUD systems. Is it's probably time that we go in that direction.
Stormwater is certainly the poor cousin of sewage and potable water, and they've had relevant standards and accreditations for decades. Obviously, we need to lift our game in accordance with that. So if there's nothing readily available, we need to look at developing it over coming years. But obviously, we can't have accreditation without the tools to go with it. So, and
Murray, you've done a great job at kind of getting some training up and running. I think it's a logical extension or just evolution of that. I don't think it shouldn't be about creating or replacing any existing capacity or resources. As an industry, I think we need to come together and build on what's been done. And I think this is a really good start, a really good step in that direction.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Does anyone else have anything they want to say, whether that's through a comment or raising your hand and having a talk? Otherwise, we might get on to the next section. Cool.
Let's keep it moving.
Let's keep going. So next was so about Blacktown City Council's experience. So hopefully Kate is on the call and ready to share her screen, or Christy or whoever's sharing.
It will be Kate sharing, I believe, Daniel.
Yep, cool.
Yep. Hi, Daniel. Hi, everyone.
Cool.
Yep, I'm just getting the screen ready now.
Cool.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll just take off my camera just in case we get any connection issues. Bear with us a second. How do we do this?
I can do that for you. I can do it for you, Kate.
If you can take my video off, that would be great, and then we won't have any interruptions.
Done.
Perfect. Okay, so all right. So can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Right, thanks for that intro. Sorry for that delay, but yeah, so I'm Kate. I joined Blacktown City Council as WSUD Compliance Officer in June this year. So the position was previously held by Daniel, and I know there's been others before him also. I joined in the third quarter of a one-year trial of Blacktown's reporting-based compliance program. My background is in engineering mainly within the manufacturing sector, and particularly with asset management, operations management, and continuous improvement. But over the last 5 years, I've transitioned into the environmental science space, and I have a passion for water quality and water management. So today we're going to talk about our experience in operating a WSUD compliance program, and to share with you some of the challenges and opportunities that we found. We don't intend to cover any aspect in detail, but we'd welcome anyone to get in touch if you'd like any information from our experience. So first, we'll go through some fundamental requirements needed for us to operate our program. We'll then talk about the stages of evolution of our program, where it started, where we are now, and how we intend to take the program forwards. Next, we'll highlight some of the challenges that we've experienced and some of the opportunities that we've identified. And then lastly, we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end if there's any questions. And there's lots of people on the call that could potentially answer questions as well, because they've had involvement in the program at various stages. Okay, so the operation of our program is supported fundamentally by Section 88 instruments of the New South Wales Conveyancing Act, which is, we impose positive covenants and restrictions on the use of land. We also have Part J of Blacktown Council's Development Control Plan, and this has relevant standards and design principles and the controls for water sensitive urban design and development in Blacktown. Our development consent conditions include specific requirements for the maintenance of these systems, and that includes a maintenance schedule, a maintenance contract, and this must be set up in line with our inspection and maintenance guidelines. So Blacktown Council's compliance management program began back in 2012, which included a significant amount of input from multiple stakeholders, and that built the foundations of the program. This involved setting the legal framework, development of the management system, educational materials, and also engagement with landholders on how to manage their systems. The program at this stage was largely inspection based, and it involved a team of people that visited sites carrying out inspections of these systems. These were mainly informed through notification of new development or were targeted investigations. Challenges faced in that phase of the program were largely due to resource constraints, and there were some other factors. And in 2019, the program underwent a significant review. From that review in 2022, the program transitioned to the reporting-based program. This is where a number of properties were selected to enter a one-year trial. This is where landowners were required to carry out inspections either themselves if they had the relevant experience and training, as previously mentioned, or they could engage contractors to carry out inspections on their behalf. These properties were targeted in industrial and commercial premises, and the priority was based on risk. So, as I said earlier, I joined at the third quarter of this trial, and one of the biggest challenges that I found is managing the amount of data and the frequency of reporting. We currently use Microsoft Excel for managing that data and tracking compliance. For our trial purposes, this was sufficient, but what we found that in its existing format, there's a high level of manual administration that's needed for each of the properties. This also has the potential for risk of introducing any data errors, so we're now looking to an automated solution. To move the program forwards, we're looking at different software systems. We haven't got an answer yet, but we're looking to automate some of the reporting and compliance tracking functions. The vision that we have is that with robust data control, we'll be able to operate the compliance program more efficiently. This would allow us to increase participation, and then we look to progress to an audit-based program. So over the last year, we've experienced a number of challenges, and I've grouped some categories on this slide. One of the main challenges was to understand what WSUD systems are installed on a property, and this comes down to good documentation. Our development conditions require developers to provide us those documents, and these documents must be received before occupation certificate is given. The works as executed help us check that the right maintenance schedules have been developed, and maintenance contracts ensure we have ongoing maintenance that will be carried out. Getting these documents from developers later than the OC stage can be quite a challenge. So I understand that when the trial began, there were some challenging discussions with property owners, some that felt they'd been unfairly targeted, and in their view, other properties should have been included. So this is something that we need to consider when we go forwards. For communication, some properties that we deal with directly with contractors, and some have trust ownership and some have individual ownership. So, and our current system relies us to update contact details as and when they change. So this is something that's been difficult for us to keep the point of contact for a property. Additionally, some of the properties are under lease, and leaseholders have had challenges with access arrangements in gaining access for maintenance. This isn't necessarily in the scope of our program, so this is something that landholders will need to manage themselves. Our trial was limited to a number of properties, and it was around about 20. And as mentioned before, we're now looking to expand this program to include more properties. Another challenge we have is the reporting. So the reporting-based program in its current form is pretty comprehensive, and it covers all aspects of the life cycle of a WSUD system, from development, implementation, maintenance, and finally to end-of-life replacement. So some sites have got multiple types of system and device, and our experience at managing at a device level is impractical. So we found that to implement all of those aspects, it needs a lot of resource, which we don't have, and this will prevent us including more in properties in our program. Another challenge is data and interaction. So the compliance program we use has a number of systems that council have for building the database, property information, and also properties that we select into our program. Our current Excel system doesn't necessarily interact very well with that, so we rely on regular checking and tracking of data. The data management side is not as robust as it could be, so there are potential errors that could be introduced. Another aspect is report delivery. So we have a shared email account which receives these reports. Processing them has multiple steps. And what we have found is that we can get some duplication based on the interaction of the contacts for properties. And some properties, we get multiple reports for different properties from one person. So on occasion, we've also had properties that, reports that don't identify the property that it's relating to. So as you can imagine, that's problematic. For enforcement, so we, as I said, we underpin our program on the legislation of New South Wales, and there was a tremendous amount of work done to provide council with the necessary authorisation to undertake enforcement actions. To date, we've had limited times where we've had to issue corrective actions, and this has been mainly through issuing notices, which these have been generally responded to, and we've not yet had to have any non-compliance issues where we've had to enforce a council inspection. Okay, so opportunities. We've identified opportunities to improve, and I'll go through those on this slide. So we need to ensure WSUD system and maintenance documentation is received at the development stage. Automating reporting and compliance assessment using dedicated software. We see that this will address some of the challenges spoken about, and this will help in receipt and management of reports and identifying properties for compliance. We're also looking at reporting frequency. I think Daniel mentioned that previously as well. So our program focused on a limited number of properties, and with over 1,000 in the LGA that we have, we've got limited resource, and so it would be really difficult to manage these. So we see opportunity in prioritising with catchment alignment. And as said, our future direction, we're looking to transition to an audit-based program. And it could be done in a number of ways. This could be by random selection, as Andrew mentioned in the chat, through incident notification, or if there's a concern from the community. The idea is that audits would be based on adequacy of inspections, the level of the reporting from property owners or contractors, and also key maintenance activities where there's a critical component. With all of these, we feel that we would allow for a broader implementation of our program and eventually include all properties in the LGA. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Christy, who's now going to go through some of the key considerations. All over to you, Christy.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. If I can get you just to hit the next slide, they should all come up in one go. Look, thanks, Kate, for giving that overview. And I guess I just wanted to include this slide, I guess, more from a high level, some of the, I guess, the pain points that we experienced, certainly in the time that I was here. And as Kate indicated, others on the call may speak to some of these or some other pain points, but certainly some key things. If you want to get a WSUD compliance program in place, there in my view, there are, I guess, a couple of components. There's getting the front end right, so making sure you've got the conditions of consent. So you really need to make sure what you condition up front is what you need to actually implement the program. And we put a lot of work into this to make sure that the wording was correct. You know, the maintenance schedules, the timing when things needed to be submitted to council, all of those sorts of things are really important. Positive covenants. We had a lot of discussion with our legal team over our positive covenants, and there's probably councils out there who probably have a different view on this as well. But this is really where we're hanging our hat, that in the positive covenant is where we can say that the legal requirement is for the property owner to be able to manage and maintain the WSUD system in perpetuity. So you really need to have your legal team on board, aware of what you're proposing to do, because at the end of the day, they are going to be the ones who will be backing you to enforce any compliance. So I would suggest that you make sure you bring your legal team on this journey up front. And that speaks to the second point. As I said, positive covenants, they need to be happy with the wording at the front. But back end, they're going to be the people that are going to help you take any enforcement action. And then getting on to the final point there, enforcement needs to be endorsed. We haven't gone there yet. We are actually just now starting to enter into that. We haven't got a diagram on our process, but we're just, let's say we're moving into the red zone. We're starting to have some of those trial properties moving into the non-compliance stage. So it's really important that you have the support of your executive or your council if you do intend to go through with enforcement. So look, there, as I said, just a couple of high-level things that which I think are really important things from a kind of a strategic level implementing this program that you might want to be mindful and consider up front. Thanks, Kate. I will pass over to you now I think questions is next. You there, Kate?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. Yeah, so, oh, okay. So, yeah, so please do ask us any questions on our experience. As I say, I'm quite fresh into the program, so there may be others on the call that perhaps could answer your questions.
Andrew Thomas, you've put your hand up and you've got a couple of comments in the chat. You might want to verbalise them.
Yeah, just look, I lost track of this after I moved into the Cooks River job, but I remember when I was there, they were talking about introducing standard conditions of state government. Did that actually happen in the end? Are there now standard conditions? Forgive me if I've...
Yeah, I can answer that,
Yeah.
if that's okay. Yes, there were some standard conditions that were introduced, but they were woefully inadequate. Craig can probably attest to the challenges that we had. We had a set of state government conditions, but it was actually probably took us almost 12 months to go through, not just related to the compliance program, but looking at asset design and building bioretention systems, etc. It took us nearly a year to really get our conditions. And look, we were already undergoing a process where we were trying to synthesize, improve our conditions anyway. But I would suggest there is no way that you would rely on any those state government conditions to be able to enforce this program.
Yeah, I was just wondering if my concern at the time, and I was only there when it first got announced, that they would exclude all others, but you can still do bespoke ones, or
yes,
yeah, that's cool, because that was a worry at the time. Okay,
yeah, no,
thanks, Christy.
Good point. Definitely wouldn't rely on those.
Ben Peneleric's got his hand up.
Yeah, I put the comments in the chat. Great work, Kate, and thanks, Christy, for all of that. I just wanted to kind of clarify something, maybe, because as some of you should know, I was a compliance officer for a short amount of time before it was handed over to Andrew and Dan. We always sort of knew that reporting-based approach wasn't really going to work because it was just too much. And we'd flagged that risk at the start as part of the review from memory, and put forward this idea of an industry-driven kind of approach, which was supported by a formal qualification and accreditation sort of system or scheme or something like that. The issue is, at Blacktown, I don't think we ever really got a firm understanding of the numbers of the assets because of the trying to wrestle all of the documents out of people's hands or get them out of systems that other people had control of, or we didn't have access to, or just were difficult to access for some reason. Was very challenging. But it's in the thousands. There's lots and lots of assets and many properties with these things installed. So we always knew that getting every single one of those properties to submit reports indicating that these things are being maintained in accordance with our requirements, and for us to review all of those things as well to make sure that's happening, and then issue corrective actions if and when they're not, or even just touch base with them. You'd need hundreds of compliance officers. So I think moving to an audit-based approach it makes a lot of sense. It's the way it was once upon a time, but I do want that learning to be maintained at council and for anybody else. I think there is a real need to sort of have a qualification there, some competency around inspection and maintenance, and really when you have that, councils are well placed to enshrine requirements for property owners to make sure that they're engaging these people, for the accreditor to make sure that these people to request evidence to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And then when you've got that, at least you've got the sort of assurance that people are properly trained and qualified, that there's contracts in place, and at that point I think you can definitely go out there and start auditing places perhaps that are most risky in a random sense, to make sure that these things are actually happening. The penalties for non-compliances then really go to the contractor as well, in stripping their accreditation and stuff like that, and maybe it moves to more of an education and recognition sort of approach for the property owners. So I want to make sure that that's sort of remembered in the story of this, because Dan I think is trying to push for this idea of a qualification and accreditation, and like I said, it's been done elsewhere around the world with apparently reasonable success. So yeah, but otherwise good work, and I do embrace and encourage that audit-based approach, and it looks like you're doing really great things, Kate.
Yeah.
So,
Christy, do you want to say something in response to that?
There is one thing that I'll respond to, but I just wanted to just check in with Kate, just in terms of that reporting base first. Like, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, so with going to Ben's comments, yeah, absolutely. The number of assets and devices within the local government area that are there, we absolutely would not have sight of all of those historically and presently, and that comes down to good documentation, and that to me would be critical in getting that up front when new developments happen. And like you say, with understanding the systems, the work that's been put in up front before I joined the program, you know, there's processes there that we can utilize, and by moving to automate some of those processes will take away a lot of the burden from administrating the program. So there are ways forward to, you know, to bring up to use the data that we've got, and also set the wheels in motion for moving forward. So I think with software, absolutely, that would be key to managing any system, purely from a resource perspective. Absolutely, that would be key, and that's something that we're pushing quite hard at the moment. And as I said in my presentation, once that is in place and we've got that tested, we can then move to the audit-based program. Yeah, and looking at key areas, we can't cover everything. It would just be impossible for council to manage that. So with going to an audit-based program, yes, we would be looking to target key areas, risk areas, and areas that would also benefit from having better compliance systems.
Can I just? Yeah, thanks, Brad. So just in terms of the accreditation that we've spoken about, we wholeheartedly agree with that, and it was something that we explored. I think it was when Ben, Daniel, Andrew, Craig, and I were all involved in it, and just some of the feedback. We took it to procurement in-house, how we could potentially get that kick-started, but there was a real adversity, there was a real risk for a particular council taking that on, because it would potentially be seen that we're excluding people from the market. So it was something that in isolation a single council cannot do. That component of it, I believe, has to absolutely be driven by industry. Industry has to come up with what that accreditation program is. As Ben has flagged, there are lots of different models around the world where people have done that, but I don't believe a council, there needs to be something in place that a council can tap into.
Yeah, no, kind of building off that, I agree with what Christy's saying. A council can't necessarily be saying who can and who can't be doing the work in that sort of sense in terms of an accreditation, and within probably the kind of second stage of the framework, that is something I want to look towards, working with some other organization, whether that's on a national level or a state level, looking to implement some sort of accreditation, because I think without that, there isn't really a chance of solving this issue. At the moment, probably the best thing in place is the Stormwater New South Wales training. However, that does need to move towards an accreditation, or some other organisation needs to step up for that as well.
I know Andrew's had his hand up, but before we get to Andrew, Craig Hughes from City of Port Adelaide Enfield had a question for Kate or Christy. Craig asks, what type of landowners do you work with, and do you have heavy industry land users?
I can answer that. Yeah, so the properties that we've got in the program range from, you know, industrial manufacturing sites or petrol stations. We've got some properties that are childcare centres. So there is a range of properties there, and there are also investment groups that own industrial units that own a suite of properties as well. Yeah, and also warehouses, things like that. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah. Maybe another question I had personally was in terms of resources. Like obviously, Blacktown's City Council's invested a lot of resources into the development of the program, which hopefully this program might alleviate for other councils. But what about sort of the resources required to essentially enforce or manage the ongoing program within Blacktown City?
Okay, Christy, do you want to take this one or?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question, Brad. So at the moment, we've got Kate as the compliance officer. We have a vacant support officer, which is hopefully, is getting filled next week. We are significantly limited by only having those two officers, by the number. We are limited the number of properties that we can take on board by having those two officers. So the more we can automate at all stages, the more we can automate. And Ben spoke to that process of how hard it is to find documents related to WSUD. And Kate can probably attest to this because she spends a vast amount of time trying to get that information. Maybe not all councils' record keeping system is as, dare I say it, as poor as what ours is here. But being able to make improvements in, getting the information that you need in a streamlined manner can get your properties into the program in a streamlined manner, putting them out into the industry. So I guess it's a self-perpetuating and getting the industry to be doing the inspections and reporting. So then all our officers need to do is by exception. We run the reports and we go, oh, okay, these are the properties that haven't, that are non-compliant, haven't submitted reports. So to me, look, we're still a little while off yet, but we're definitely moving in that direction to get things automated. And that would be something else that I'd say to any other council that's looking at doing this is you could start to be looking at how you collect your data, your information from your DAs now. Like start to get that in order as a basic minimum, because that's probably going to start. That's probably where a lot of your time is going to be taken up. And I guess just in terms of speaking to resources, Brad, I guess we're fortunate because we actually we fund these positions out of our environmental stormwater management program. So I know Stormwater New South Wales had a workshop a couple of weeks ago about different mechanisms for funding and sustainable stormwater management. And the only reason we're able to have these positions is because council charges the management service charge, and it's one of the funds that we can dip into to fund these positions. So I'd strongly encourage councils that don't have some form of additional funding to pay, maybe you should look at, and look, there are a range of different I guess levers and funds that you can pull. So maybe go back to Stormwater New South Wales and see if you can get some notes on that workshop. But you need to be able to fund these positions as well.
I think you'll find, Christy, that Blacktown is one of the leaders, certainly not the followers in this regard. And you guys have a lot more information than the majority of the other councils out there. So everyone is still looking at Blacktown for leadership in this space. So keep it up. Just while I'm still talking, I knew that'd bring a smile to Brad's face. Optimal has actually helped out Blacktown Council on just irrelevantly on a couple of particular cases where you've required compliance. They've contacted Optimal Stormwater. They've just done a Google search, I guess, and found us and said, could you come out and tell us what we need to do with our WSUD assets? Can you help us fill in this form for Blacktown Council? So we've been out, we've assessed what they needed to do, and said, well, at the moment, every single gully pit trap you have is full. Your bio's full of weeds and not working. Everything needs to be fixed. So if you report all this back to council, they're going to come to you and say, you need to fix it. So would you like a price to fix it? They said, yes, please. So then we got in and started emptying things and cleaning them. but optimal stormwater is not a cleaning contractor, and it's not really a space that we want to be in. We'd be happy being an auditor, but sort of not a regular cleaner doing the work for these guys. So happy to be part of the solution. Don't know exactly what role we would play moving forward, but yeah, if you do need help with certain properties, we're happy to get in and advise people on what assets they actually have, what information they need, the cleaning process associated with those, and then doing the reports as an example, and then hopefully handing it back to them, and then they can do the cleaning and reporting moving forward. But just a quick word of caution. If it's given to the cleaning contractors, the job of the cleaning contractor is to make money for the cleaning contractor. He's not going to report if he's doing a poor job. So there's a little conflict of interest in the cleaning guys that are actually doing the works, reporting on how well they're doing the works.
I think
hence the need for someone to periodically potentially audit them.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of what Blacktown is trying to do, and what I'm going to try to do with the framework is, yeah, you have the auditor check the work of the contractor, because yeah, there is that conflict of interest, so that is needed.
Christy's had a hand up. Do you want to comment further, Christy?
Yeah, sorry, Murray just said something that just tweaked my that might be worthwhile sharing. And look, there are so many parts to this, to this kind of program, but moving, I guess, down into that red zone when you start to looking at non-compliances, the other thing as a council, you need to look at your goods and services pricing schedule, because what you want to be able to do is in a position that if people are in non-compliance, you want to be able to have the goods and services approved by council to say, yes, we can engage a contractor to go out and inspect that system and tell us what needs to be done. So in the absence of somebody providing an inspection and maintenance report, we have the ability in our goods and services manual to engage somebody, do those works in our behalf. And there's also in the positive covenant, and others on this call are far more across the positive covenants than I am, but it also goes a step further that council can actually recover costs if we actually have to go and do the maintenance works. So there's quite a lot of things to consider. The guys on the team who've been involved in the program have done an absolutely awesome job of documenting, all of these different components and things that you need to consider. Look, we are continually refining it. We haven't nailed it. We're still in the trial program. But again, they're just something else that you need to consider. And as an example, the lead time, I've just put something in for another program, but we're looking at 24, 25 goods and services, for example. So if you're actually wanting to be able to charge these things, you need to be thinking ahead and getting them into your goods and services manual. But I can have that conversation offline if anyone has any more questions about that.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. If no one, I think we might, unless Kate or Christy have anything else they want to say, I think we might just move on to wrapping up the meeting, if that's okay with both of you.
I've got no more comments, so thanks for your questions.
Yeah, thank you both for doing the presentation. I'm sure a lot of people found a lot of value in that, so thank you.
Thanks.
Getting back to this. That's kind of the next step. So yeah, we're getting close to the end of the meeting now, so just going to go through a bit about kind of what's coming up. So what's next? So I'll do a little poll soon to kind of figure out when the next meeting should be, but I'll send a link maybe Friday or Monday looking at a registration link so people can register for the next meeting. I'll be looking to maybe do January or February, just due to the fact that 2 months from now would be December. So I just think it's probably better to wait till the new year before we do another meeting. Provide in-principle support as an organisation and or professional. So as I said before, I've got a few already at the moment for that, but I am going to be looking for more. So if anyone's interested in providing in-principle support, basically just saying that you agree with this framework and you think it's a good idea, please do get in contact, and I'm happy to kind of help you through that process if you're interested. Next, consider how you want to be involved and support this network and framework. So do you want to just be a participant, no commitment, no obligation, just come along when you want? Do you want to be that in-principle supporter that provides support for this? Do you want to be a pilot partner? Would you be interested in piloting this project, this framework? Or maybe becoming a framework partner and contributing to the development of that? And so if you're interested in any of these pathways, well, of these options, please do let me know. I'd be happy to kind of have a chat about what those would look like for different people in different organizations. So just a bit of a poll just to kind of get a bit of data before we wrap up. I would just be interested in involvement. So there's no need to commit to anything now. This is more just for my interest to understand the sort of support and involvement people would be interested in. But just doing a quick poll at the moment, which would be what involvement interests you. There is unsure if you don't know at the moment, but you could be a participant, be in principal supporter, could be a pilot partner, project partner, or unsure. You can also choose multiple options as well, I believe. So yeah, I might just give that kind of 5 more seconds in case anyone wants to add anything else. Cool, thank you for that. Just kind of to show people interest. Yeah, a lot of people are interested in being participants, in principal supporters, some are unsure, and some would be interested in pilot partner or project partner. So I'll get in contact with people after today to talk about this a bit more if you are interested and responded with that. The next question I was interested in is when the next meeting should be. Basically, again, as I said before, 2 months from now would be December. So I'm thinking maybe towards the end of January or sometime in February for the next meeting. I know January might not be the best time for some people, with it just being the start of a year. So just curious to see what people think. Yeah, I'll give that another 10 seconds, but cool. So most people seem to be interested in a February meeting, so I'll probably look to do something around them, which would be good. A question that Blacktown wanted me to ask, which was, are you considering implementing a WSUD maintenance compliance program? So just curious to kind of see the interest from people on this, mainly, I guess, councils or catchment groups looking to implement compliance programs maybe. Are you already operating one? Are you considering operating one within 2 years? Not considering it? You're unsure at the moment, or you don't really have any comment at the moment? I'll give that another 5 seconds before we close. Sharing results again. Yeah, most people seem to be unsure at the moment, which is fair enough. Hopefully with the framework, we can provide a bit more clarity over what this needs to be like. Yeah, some considering it and some not considering it, which is okay. And final question, just meeting feedback, just kind of curious to see what people thought about today's meeting. Were you happy with an hour-long meeting? Were you happy getting people besides for myself to present, such as Blacktown Council? Do you think there are ways that could be better? Again, if you say could be better or bad meeting, I can reach out and find out how to make this better for you. But okay, cool. So everyone's happy with the meeting, which is good to see. So yeah, meeting's kind of wrapping up right now, but if you want to talk to me after today, you can reach out to me via email, phone, or LinkedIn. You can also go to wsudcompliance.com.au, where there will be the recording of this meeting. There will be other bits of information and material. And yeah, the recording for this will be there too. And so that's the end of the presentation. Again, you can contact me, or thanks to Blacktown for talking today. And if you wanted to talk to them more, you can reach out to them via wsud@blacktown.newsouthwales.gov.au, or you can call them on 5300 6000. But yeah, if people want to stay on and talk a bit more, I'm happy to stay on for a bit. And otherwise, if people need to go, I get that, and hopefully see you next time. And I guess just a thank you to Kate and Christy for speaking today. Really appreciated that. And thank you everyone else for coming along.